welcome to episode 71 of the Camerosity Podcast, the world's #1 open source film photography podcast. My name is Mike Eckman, and we are back. Well, sorta. As you all know, we've had a lot of scheduling obstacles come up since the last episode. And as the weeks went by and it wasn't looking favorable to have everyone on at the same time, we decided to just record what we could and get whoever could make it and just have some fun. So while most of our episodes are unscripted and have an element of spontaneity in them, this one was completely off the script. We hope you enjoy it.
How's it going?
Hey, look who's here.
Greetings from Ireland.
From Ireland, across the pond.
It's 8 p.m. here, and I have been drinking, but I've limited my intake just so I could a relatively normal conversation.
Well, that's not fun.
Well, also because if I drink too much more wine, I won't be able to have ice cream in a few minutes. So
there you go. All right, that's good balance.
How's it going? Everybody, who's going to join tonight? Anybody you know?
For tonight, I don't know. Ira asked. I don't know if Theo hasn't responded. I know he's been swamped at work, and he had said today wasn't a good day. But I just wanted to get something out there, even if it's half an episode.
Yeah. No, well, I miss us.
Yeah.
We talk, back channel almost every day, but
yeah,
it's just so much more fun to have a conversation. One of the cool things about being in Ireland is that I had lunch the other day with Brian McDomnell, who is one of our international European vacation callers, and he lives down in Cork, which is about an hour away.
Okay.
So he went out to take pictures early in the morning and then met us for lunch down in Kenmare. And that was cool. Yeah. Great guy. He was shooting with his the Yashica D that you convinced him to buy.
Yes.
Between the two of us, we've managed to really hurt him financially.
I love the D. I know we've promoted it before, but it to me strikes that perfect balance of simple, reliable, less to go wrong, but it was made late enough that it has a very bright viewfinder without having to do too much with it. And if you get one of the last ones, you get the 4-element Yashinon, but even with the 3-element Yashicore, it still produces wonderful results.
Yeah, he also had with him a Pentax 6x7 that he didn't even take out of the car. I mean, he just had so much fun shooting the Yashica.
Yeah.
Oddly enough, but the morning that he was out shooting before we met him, he was at a beach over on the Ring of Kerry called Derrynane Beach, where we had been like the day before. And there is a Derrynane Beach is a great white sandy beach, beautiful beach. But the cool thing is that around the beach, a little bit farther north of where you went, there's a burial ground that's on an island. It's called Abbey Island, and you can only reach it. You can only reach it dry by wait until the tide is out. And if you're not really careful, you're over there and the tide comes in, and you're probably going to get your feet wet getting back to the mainland. But anyway, we had a great time with him.
Did you guys like shoot together at all, or you just kind of?
We didn't. We had some things we had to do that day, and he needed to get back to Cork. He manages a gallery down in Cork, and Monday was his day off, so it was time for him to do that.
Well, that's cool.
But, I took him a little Yashica Olympus, an Olympus LT-105, one of the little leather covered cameras.
Yeah.
I had one that was burgundy that I brought home from the store when I closed and never done anything with it. And I wanted to do something. And so I just gave it to him. But anyway, he shot a roll of film through it and it looked really good. The only thing that he experienced with it that, I figured this out years ago, that little lightweight cameras, when you push a shutter button down, you really got to be aware that it's going to tilt the camera to the right. They just don't have enough mass to make them hold stable. So he learned that. And
when I was reading about the Olympus XA, XA2, Maitani was designing that was part of the reason why he designed the electronic shutter release to be as sensitive as possible, because it's so easy to press down on it with a mechanical release and make the camera bounce. So it was designed with as minimal force as possible to trigger that shutter without any kind of body shake.
Yeah, that's
do I need to plug in my external microphone, or can you hear me?
Oh, we got you. Hey, Anthony.
Hey, how are you?
Good. How you doing?
Eh,
Chasing alligators?
did you watch that video?
I did.
I
It's
Yeah,
did.
I did.
terrifying because once they start going, they all start going, and pretty soon you realize how many there are around you.
I picture it being like in Jurassic Park with the velociraptors, where like one or two will purposely get your attention while like three or four more flank you from the sides.
Luckily, the water's really low, and there's a fish kill, so there are thousands of like 3 foot long carp floating in the water, and that's why they're all congregating and they're feasting on these dying fish. So they're well fed and distracted.
That's good.
That's
That's good.
good. That's all good. You remember the old Seminole wrestling the alligator, sitting on
Oh
his
yeah,
back and
yep.
pulling his head back and sticking his arm down the alligator's throat. I mean,
We're not doing
Jesus,
that.
that's crazy. That's
Yeah,
crazy
no,
talk.
there's a local botanical garden, and the guy who was the chief curator was clearing weeds out of a pond, and got a little muddy after a while, and he stuck his hand, elbow deep in the water to pull up some water hyacinth, and a gator sheared his arm off at the elbow, just clean off.
Oh no. Well, I said to Anthony after he posted this video, it's basically like a swamp, and you see, I don't know, five or six alligators, and they have this guttural, like vibrating growl.
Oh, it's amazing.
Yeah, it's I said that's the stuff nightmares are made out of.
Oh, it is. You have this like visceral flight response when you hear it.
Yeah.
And what they do is you'll see the one big one. They arch their back and get their throat out of the water, and before you can hear it, you'll see the water vibrating off the backs. Right, so you'll see the water suddenly start dancing about 6 inches above. Then you hear this.
Yeah, I don't do that. That just that doesn't that's got no the only thing worse than that to me would be if it was a python in the video also.
I suspect if you were a Foley artist and needed to capture sounds for like a science fiction, like an alien about ready to jump you, that would be a good sample to play back.
Oh, absolutely.
So Anthony, Paul's in Ireland. We kind of did this impromptu, quick, just catch up on how things are going. And Paul let us know that he was able to meet up with Brian McDummel.
Yeah.
Have you gotten any shooting lately out there?
Well, I was out there shooting alligators to finish off the roll of 50D that I had in the Nikon SP. And then I thought, oh crap, I never shot that 85 millimeter that you sent. And I was wondering how quickly I could shoot off a roll of 24 just to try that lens out. So I may not send your cameras back until tomorrow.
That's fine. So before I sent you, what did I send you? An S2 and an
Yes,
SP.
the
And what,
S2, the S2 had the 35 millimeter on it.
okay.
The SP had the 51.4, and then there was the 85 that was packed up. Ooh, I need to go get a phone call from my radiologist. I'll
Okay.
be back in a second.
Well, I guess we'll have to wait a little bit longer to hear what Anthony's opinion was, because before I sent those to him, he had never so much as even held a Nikon rangefinder. So I wanted to get the final verdict from him, but we shall
Well,
wait a little bit longer.
the other thing that was sort of cool about being in this time zone, I had a text from or message from Mark Beadle last night asking me a question about that Zeiss 51.5 that this guy had it advertised as a late war version. Actually, it wasn't. It was 1941. Late war.
Yeah, it was wartime.
War at least. Yeah, it was wartime.
Mhm.
But it was I wouldn't have done it. But anyway, it led to a fun conversation with Mark, and we yacked for probably several hours until I finally had too much beer and fell asleep. But
Didn't he end up buying the Pikachu?
he bought the Nikon L35AF.
Yeah.
Some guy had one for $72 shipped.
Oh wow.
72 pounds shipped, which is
Yeah.
$85.
That's still a deal.
It was a good deal. And
Mhm.
it really didn't, I don't know if it was version 1 or 2, and he didn't know, but it doesn't matter if it's at all working, that's a good price.
Yeah. Only the
So-
first version has the 5-element lens though. With the second version, so I did a little I have the third version. I've never ever had the first or second. The first one has the 5-element lens that everybody goes gaga over. But even the 4-element is still excellent. I mean, any of those three are going to make
Yeah, I
great
thought I
shots.
didn't know there were three. Which one?
The
One of them
third
has
one,
the,
the third version, they called it the One Touch.
Oh,
It
right.
has
Okay. Yeah.
it has a suffix, and I offhand don't remember what it is, but it's essentially an evolution of the first two models. But with the second one, they simplified it too much, and they got rid of the filter ring, and they did something else to it, and I can't remember what it is
Well,
that
wait a
was
minute
less.
now. The first one only went to ASA 400. The second went to ASA 1000.
Okay, that's true. There's two variants of the first model.
Okay,
So
that's where I'm confused. That's
yeah,
it then.
okay.
Yeah,
So we're
yeah.
using
So
different
I
terms. So
consider the ASA 1000 be the second version, but it's just a variation of the first.
yeah. They never officially Nikon never officially marketed them any differently. They just at one point started supporting the faster film speeds.
Yeah.
So Mike, I had the S2 with the 35, the SP with the 50-1.4. Then you ship the 85 with the external viewfinder, and
Yep.
then the Lomo LCA 120.
Yes, that's right. Mhm. So what I was asking you was before I sent you any of those Nikons, you had said on the show that you had never even so much as held a Nikon rangefinder. So the ultimate question is now that you've had two different kinds, couple different lenses, and had a to be able to shoot some of them, have some time with them. What's your final opinion on those cameras?
If my blood wasn't radioactive, I'd be selling some serum to try to buy that SP off of you.
You really liked it then, huh?
I enjoyed shooting the SP more than the S2.
That's cool to hear, but I like the S2 better. So that's cool that you went the other way.
Yeah,
What's the finder like on the SP? Was it good?
yeah, both of them are good.
Okay.
I mean, Mike's
Okay.
cameras are in as good a condition as I can imagine they could be.
That's cool because it's rare to find an SP with
Yeah.
a finder that hasn't separated or hazed up.
There's a
Um,
little bit of haze, but it's not bad.
Good.
Yeah, it's not bad. I mean, if you compare it to like an M3, the Leica's is better, but it's quite good. They did a really good job with that camera, and
Compared to my
certainly,
Ultramatics, it's pristine.
yeah,
I've made peace with those cameras finally. My problem with them always was I really didn't like the squeal when they focused. The wheel on the top was
right.
useless to me to focus, and the lock I hated. But when you turn it, it just makes an annoying squeaking sound. And finally, somebody said, "Well, why don't you just lubricate it a little bit?"
Yeah.
Which made perfect sense once you think about it. And so I did that, and now I'm fine with them.
For me, with both of them, I'm not entirely thrilled with where the camera shutter release button is compared to the contacts. With the contacts, you've got the large winding wheel on the top instead of the thumb level, and the button's large and in the middle, so that your finger can find it very fast. And with both of the Nikons, I want it to be about maybe a half a centimeter forward of where it is. I'm always putting my finger down ahead of where the button is, just because I like using the focus on the front, and I have to go searching for the release button. That's the only downside to it. Otherwise, they're really cool cameras. Very well made, solid. I mean, the contacts is a bit looser, but in a good way. It kind of reminds me. It's just like it just feels faster to me. The contacts, but uh, but I like them both. I like both those Nikons. They're really cool cameras. I'm glad I got a
Yeah.
chance to shoot them, and I
Yeah.
appreciate this because I'm not sure I could ever have ponied up to buy either of them. And so it's been a lot of fun to shoot with. And I like the Holga. I mean, not the Holga, but the Lomo LCA
The
120.
120. Yeah.
Again, not a camera I think I'd buy, but for shooting a very wide angle 6x6, it's a cool camera. I got consistently good shots out of it.
I would say the Lomo, the LCA wide, if that camera could be purchased at a price consistent with its build quality and
Yes.
where in
Yes.
the market it
Absolutely.
should be, then absolutely I would buy them all day long.
I
It's
mean, if that camera were $150, I would not think twice about it because it feels like that. I mean, it's a plastic camera.
It's a plastic camera, heavy vignetting. I mean, it's basic, single shutter speed. I mean, that's the challenge with a lot of those Lomo cameras is that the collectability, they have the market for them is just through the roof. And even just to find the camera, I think you can find the cameras about for 150, at least the last time I checked. But the one that I sent you came in a kit inside of a wooden box with like a hardcover book of a bunch of sample shots from other people. It's got like a presentation case, a whole bunch of random accessories that To get the whole kit can be quite pricey. But yeah, if that was something where you could pick them up for $50-$75, absolutely, that would be the go-to 6x6 cheap camera. But unfortunately, by paying more for the market value, you don't get a better camera. And I think there's just better 6x6 options that are more affordable.
And apparently, Lomo are still selling them new for around $500 on their website.
Oh,
And
really?
and from what I've heard, people are getting them and they're like dead stock. They're like new old stock. Like they were built like 5 or 6 years ago,
Yeah.
and they've been sitting. And people are starting to have like shutter issues where they're getting these brand new cameras for $500, and they're like sitting back and going through 2 or 3 because it's a cheap camera that's been sitting in a box for 3 years or 5 years or 6 years, and they're not firing on all cylinders, so to speak.
Well, but that's a concern with any camera. You want the perfect vintage camera is the one that was used with some regularity, but it's been well taken care of. That's perfect. To get the heavy, worn, battle scarred, tons of vignetting cameras, those are going to work good too, but they're not going to be attractive as much for display purposes. But you also don't want the mint condition new inbox like you described, because
Right.
they almost never work. Granted, that's only what 3 to 5 years. So, imagine when you get these late 70s, Canon AE1 mint, new inbox, never used. It's guaranteed not to work.
Right. Well, it's what pisses me off about guys that when they want to buy a Leica M3. Oh, does it have the L seal? Does it have the L seal?
Right.
If it has the L seal, it means it's never been serviced. So what's the point of that? It's probably not going to work. Or if it does work, it's not going to work very well.
Right. And then they're mad at you because, it's not working. I wanted a new
right,
camera.
but you didn't ask me if it worked. You asked me if it had the L seal.
If you want a mint condition camera that works, you buy the mint camera and immediately send it out for service.
It's like a Nikon F. If you buy a Nikon F, honestly, it doesn't matter if you buy one that's beat to death or one that looks like it's brand new. They're probably going to be fine. The shutter speeds on those cameras, Mark Beadle and I were talking about that this morning. They're almost always accurate.
Yeah.
All the way up to 1,000th of a second, which is usually a little bit slow, like a 600th or something. But rangefinder cameras like Leicas or Canons or any of those, they really are not going to be. They're not going to work unless you spend some time having them see out.
So my other camera adventure, we shut down the shop, the Cafe Volta, which was really hard. But I had a barista that, before we wrapped up, she was like, teach me about medium format photography. I really want to get into it. I want a starter camera. What should I get? And I had a almost like new 1961 Zeiss Icon Netar red flag. So anyway, she thought the camera looked so cool. She bought it off me for $15, and I loaded it up with her with a roll of I think I loaded her up with a roll of Tri-X. She was frustrated because her friend that she was shooting with had a Nikon AE1, and they're trying to use that for the metering. And the Netar only has 4 shutter speeds, and they're off speeds. So it's like 1/30th, 1/75th, and 1/25. And she was frustrated because she was trying to shoot it on the shutter speeds that she was getting from her friend's metering. And of course, all of her exposures were off because that she wanted to shoot it at 60 and she's shooting at 75, or she wanted to shoot it at 250, shooting at 125, but not changing the aperture. So she was trying to shoot it like an aperture priority camera when it only had 3 shutter speeds, 4 shutter speeds, which didn't work real. So, so then she started looking. She was frustrated at her results, and so she started looking online. And of course, being the internet, everybody said that she had to get a RB67. And so just for giggles, I loaded up an RB67, and it's one that I'd had problems with light leaks from the back. So I taped it all up, and we spent the day shooting with it. Unfortunately, I put a roll of 45-year-old Orvo NP27 in it that was completely destroyed by the backing paper. I mean, I got 2 ghost images off the entire roll. Everything else you can just see, it's like an abstract etching where moisture had gotten into the backing paper and it leached onto the film and solved the emulsion.
Well, and you're lucky that the paper didn't fuse to the film, because I've had that happen too.
But I gotta say that even though none of the pictures came out I just don't understand the appeal of the RB67 among young people. It's a studio camera. It is the most ridiculous camera to try to walk around with and shoot with handheld. And so then I learned the RB or the 645, the Mamiya 645, and I think that she's probably going to pick one of those up online.
Yeah, that's way more manageable.
Yeah.
I was really impressed with the Pentax 6.7 because I tend to like with the RB 6.7, I don't do well with large heavy cameras. It's not that I'm a wimp and can't carry around something heavy. My style of photography is like pick up a camera, take a shot, put it down, pick up a camera, take a shot, put it down. And to have to keep lugging, a large heavy camera like in a backpack, or if I'm out with the kids, it can be quite difficult. And while the Pentax 6.7 is very large and heavy too, I think that its form factor is so much more familiar. I mean, it truly just feels like a Pentax K, but supersized. They just stretched it in every dimension. I think that kind of helped me manage it just a little bit better. It's still heavy, but I did like the Pentax 6.7 a little more than I expected. I really have struggled to even want to load up the RB 6.7.
Yeah.
And I have one of a Bronica, I can't remember which one it is, that's just a monster too. And I like having those cameras, and I want to tell myself that I'm going to use them someday, but that day has not come yet.
I mean, I'm not a fan of the Hasselblad. It's that form factor, and I just generally don't get along. And then that's a little bit of it. But I mean, my God, a Hasselblad feels like a Minox 35 compared to that RB 6.7.
Yeah, Kurt was a fan of the Cowas. I mean, I had so many Cowas from his stuff. And, that's a smaller camera really than a Hasselblad. It's a little bit more vertical, but form factor and the footprint is a smaller camera. And they're very nice. I mean, they have a somewhat iffy reputation, but the image quality is very good. While Anthony was talking, I'm looking around behind me. I had a bag of carrots in the fridge that were a little past their use-by date, and they were horse carrots. I mean, they were the size of a broomstick, and so I threw them out in the front yard. And there's some. We have 7 deer who live in our front yard, and one of the young ones was trying to eat this carrot and not having a lot of success at it.
The other issue I have with the 645. It's a camera that has two shutter releases, one on the front and one on the top. And every time I shoot that camera, I go to rotate it to advance the film. And on my left hand, where I'm holding the camera, it's right where the shutter release is along the side. And I have never shot a roll where I haven't misfired a frame while I'm winding the camera. And you can't just like lock off one of the shutter releases. It's both or nothing.
Yeah, you can't turn it off. That shutter release is very handy if you're using a waist level finder, but that's about the only reason that I can see for using it.
Yeah. So mixed bag on those Mamiya medium format cameras. I know that they are trendy and that people love them, but when you got a lot of experience, a lot of different form factors, there's just nothing magical about them. There's nothing super special about them.
No, neither.
I'm surprised that the YouTube gerbils haven't discovered Mamiya twin lenses yet, or have they?
Not really, not so much.
No, I mean, I don't see it. I don't see anybody promoting them, and that's sort of strange because I mean, that's a vintage look.
Right. Plus, you can do the close focus with the reflex finder, extreme parallax, but still, you could change the lenses on them. I remember the first time I shot one, and I forgot about the parallax. Even though like I knew about parallax, you just don't think about it when you're shooting. And I was taking pictures of flowers, and the end result was like the top of the flower, and a whole bunch of sky. But I would agree. Like for me, if you're in a Mamiya medium format, aside from the TLRs, the 645 is my recommendation. But I'll tell you, the one thing that annoys me about the 645 is I think that camera is better with a waist level finder. And really the waist level finder is really just a hood. I mean, you could just take the prism off and just shield it with your hand. But those waist level finders for the 645s are crazy expensive.
Yeah, I saw that.
I suspect they didn't make many of them.
That's what I was going to say. Or people just threw them away. They didn't see value in them.
I mean, you can't shoot a vertical picture with them, which is, sort of a defeat if you're a wedding person in particular.
Yeah.
But the problem with 645s, if anyone wants to buy one, the one thing you want to check is make sure the prism doesn't have any separation, because they almost all do.
Mine do
and
too.
They're not repairable. They're not repairable. They taped the prisms to the top of the shell, and that tape has come loose and it's separated, and it's usually they've got a straight line down the middle of it.
Yeah, you'll see that vertical line straight through the center. I mean, it doesn't affect your pictures. You could usually ignore it. But it'll keep getting worse. So if you're a stickler for mint, you won't be happy. But if you could deal with a little bit of desilvering, then it's still usable. But I've not found the appeal of the larger Mamias. I'm not saying they're bad. I'm not saying they're not good. I'm not saying that they're still not worth checking out. But I feel like that's in the category of internet hype that's not worth it.
It's got me wondering about that Mamiya 7. I mean,
Yeah, I heard that
that's the
thing's
most
terrible.
overrated camera on the market.
Yeah,
Do
yeah.
you know anybody that's actually used one and gotten a sharp image out of them?
There's a couple TikTok influencers that keep talking about them and how great they are. But as far as I know, everybody that I respect is a great photographer would completely thumb their nose at the Mamiya 7.
There's this blog called Photo Flunking or something like that.
Yeah,
And
that's the TikTok guy, I think.
Photo Flunking, that's it. Photo
Photo
Flunking.
flunking, yeah.
Yeah, and this guy is just crazy about him. I don't get it, but
I don't
I don't see any difference between pictures taken with that and with a Canon AE1. I mean, they're just equivalent.
If you really do want 6.7 though, and you have deep pockets, my favorite is GF 670 for how portable it is. It's
those
cool to have.
Those are brutally expensive.
Yeah, and then there's a Photolander version of this too, which is even harder to find.
Yeah.
It's the exact same camera. Right,
Yeah.
right. But this has a switch to go back and forth between 6x6 or 6x7. That kind of helps, I guess, a little bit too. But in terms of portability, if you're going to spend that kind of money, I mean, honestly, you can get one of these for, the price of an RB67 and, all the accessories and lenses. Granted, this is only a single lens. You can't change it. But if I had $1,000 to burn and I wanted a 6.7 camera, I would at least value the portability of it because it folds shut. It's about the size of a Kodak monitor, maybe a little bit taller, but close enough when folded shut. But I tend to value compactness. I've learned that about myself.
Yeah, when I get home on my list, I want to shoot a roll through the Bessa 2. I still haven't done that. So I really should make sure it doesn't have any leaks in the valves.
Is that the Apar Lanthar one?
Yeah.
Okay. So you haven't sold that one yet?
No, I've been thinking about just delisting it and keeping it, but
you should.
So Paul, I have a guilty admission that I never thought I'd say this, but I'm actively thinking about selling off enough to be able to buy an M2. I don't exactly seller's regret for getting rid of my M3, but that was a nice M3 that I traded you, and then that was a really nice version of that lens. And I kind of miss shooting that camera enough that I might go through and pick out $1,500 worth of stuff to sell, buy an M2 and the lens.
The Cincinnati show Paul and I were at, there was a lady there with 3 of them.
Yeah.
And her initial prices were quite high, but I learned later that she was wheeling and dealing. I learned the hard way, but I won't talk you out of it.
No, the M2 is the one that makes sense. The M3 to me is a waste of time. I mean, you don't have your 35 frame lines, and who cares about the frame counter on the M2? I mean, it's easy. You only do that at the beginning of a roll of film. So it's not like it's a big burden, but you got your frame lines. Frankly, the one that I would get if I were you is the M4 II or the M4P. Just because the viewfinder is going to be brighter and clearer. Plus you have the other finders as well.
Can you explain the difference real quick between the M2 and the M3?
Yeah, the M2 is, the M3 has 35, 90, and 135 frame lines. The M2 also has 35 millimeter, 50.
Wait, you got that wrong.
90,
the M3 is 50, 90, and 135.
That's correct.
Yeah.
It's
the M2 has
the eye relief on it is greater. So because of that, they could not put the 35 millimeter frame lines on. So
it's no longer 1-to-1, right?
No, it isn't. That's correct.
Right.
It's 0.85.
So if you like to do both, some people talk about both eye shooting. You can't do that on the M2, but you can the M3.
I shoot open eye on every.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Finder I got without any. I don't find it to be distracting at all.
And what's the difference with the counter?
The M3 is an automatic resetting frame counter. When you
Okay.
take out the take up spool, it resets the counter to 0. On the M2, you have to physically turn the
I
dial
gotcha. Okay.
to get it back to 0. But the M2s are actually a little more expensive than M3s right now.
Well, they made less of them, right? Is that, I mean,
They
I would
did.
have to, yeah, I'd have to
They
imagine
did.
that's at least part of it.
Yep. It was a budget. It was a budget camera compared
Right.
to the M2.
So what's the reason for getting a 4 instead 4 MP over a 2?
Newer, better gearing, more frame lines. You've got your 28 millimeter frame lines as well as a 35. It's an improved viewing system. They're made in Canada. The M4 II was always said to be the camera that saved Leica because they were really sucking wind there at the end when they weren't selling SLRs. They weren't selling anything. So they started making the M4 IIs in Canada, and that they sold. They sold very well. And then the M4P was just an improvement on the M4 II. A few minor things. Either of them are good choices.
Well, it looks like MPs are selling for, ooh, they're kind of high. They're usually 1,700, 750 is like an average.
For an M4P?
That's for the 4P.
Yeah, that's not bad. I mean, M3s right now are down. They're down to around $1,200 for a body, or even a little less maybe. But that's
Or
a fair price.
there's the trade-in price for a Fuji 617 could get you one.
Yeah. Well, Mike talking about that lady at the Cincinnati show, that she had that M4P that was like brand new in the box.
Uh-huh.
And Greg offered her, I think, Greg priced it at $1,800. And I wanted to buy it for 12 or 13 or something. And she wasn't having that. So
Yeah.
but then I started researching it, and 1,800 is the right price. I mean, that's what they sell for in that kind of
Yeah.
condition.
It looks like M4 IIs are going for right at 1250. That'll lens.
Yeah. I've got a nice user one of those if you want to shoot with it, if you want to try it out. I can send you a lens to put on it.
Maybe when you get back, we'll talk about that.
Okay. All right. I got to send Mike a Super 23 with a 127 lens and a Polaroid back so you can shoot some of that Fuji FP100 you got.
Yep. I still have some of the silk too.
Do you still have some? I've got I'm down to 5 boxes of it, and I think it's sold. So we'll see what happens there.
So you had told me, we were talking the other day, you had to close the eBay store obviously because you're out of town. But do you still get people who send you requests for things while you're gone even?
Oh yeah. Guys are calling and saying, emailing me and saying, when I want to buy this, let me know when you're open again. It's weird. It's stuff that's been sitting in the store for 2 years. They want to buy it. So I'm afraid by the time I get home, they'll already found one somewhere.
They'll still want your stuff.
Yeah, like a guy who wants a Leica M bellows. I mean, one of the most useless pieces of equipment you can find. I think it's like $75, and I know I've had it for 3 years, at least 3 years.
So when you take these trips to Ireland or when you do your Arizona trip and you shut down the store, do you find that when you get back, you kind of reinvigorated about, getting stuff out? Or because I have to imagine it gets tedious after a while.
It does, but that's a great question because it's absolutely correct. I miss seeing the mess. I mean, I miss seeing all the crap on the floor and trying to find something. Yeah, I see. You can see a picture of Mike's shelves behind him. You know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I've maintained it fairly good. I mean, you can't see it now, but I have about 4 boxes every week for garbage day. I throw out about 4 to 5 of those blue and white Bankers boxes that I no longer have a need for. For a while, I was keeping a few of them just in case I needed them for something, but I need it to go. And you know how on your phone, Google Photos or Facebook always does like on this day a year ago, memories and such. It's in a couple days, it will be the 1-year anniversary of the first trip I went out to Los Angeles when Rudy and I started working on Kurt's collection. So for those who don't remember or don't know, I ended up having to go twice. My original plan was to go and actually meet Kurt. This was before he passed away. And I had planned this trip in January of last year. And at the time he was still alive. So I was supposed to go hang out with him. And unfortunately, his condition deteriorated faster than anyone had known. And he was gone before I even had a chance to get out there. And then his wife had called Rudy and said, you need to start getting rid of this stuff. And Rudy was so underprepared. None of us knew. And he started blasting Paul and I with pictures. And we were just like, oh my God, like, he's like, I don't even know where to start. And I told my wife, I said, I got to go out there. So, I took a quick 2-day trip just to at least survey and figure out. We didn't even know. I don't think I ever shared this story. Kurt had told us he had 2 storage units, two, like U-Haul storage pods. And he had told us where they were. He told us what the gate key was. He was very prepared, but he did not tell us where the keys were, because it was the kind of storage unit where it's not a combination lock. You had to type in a number to get in the door, but then you needed a physical key to open the unit. And when we were there, Heather could only find one of the 2 keys. And the thing is we had a huge truck coming to pick this stuff up. And we still had no idea of how much stuff there was. And without being able to see inside the other storage unit, which at the time we didn't know this, but the second storage unit was bigger. It was about 4 times larger, maybe 3 times larger than the other storage unit was. And we couldn't find the key. And, she had just lost her husband, so the last thing she needs is us hounding her, like, where's the key? Where's the key? And I'm brainstorming. I called the storage locker place. I'm like, hi, I'm dealing with an estate of a unit that you had rented out there. We don't have access to the unit. How can we get in there? And they're like, well, you need to give us a death certificate, which, to get death certificates doesn't happen right away. They had told her that it would be 3 to 4 weeks, and by then it would have been too late. So I was just really worried that we wouldn't even have access to the second unit. And just on a whim, I said, Heather, where's his car keys? Like, do you know where his car keys are? She goes, they're in the kitchen somewhere. So we went in there. We had to do a little bit of digging, but we found his car keys, and sure enough, it was right on his car keys. So thankfully we were able to do it. But yeah, I can't believe it's been almost a year already since all that went down. That was nuts. And I'm still throwing stuff away, empty boxes, and I have a lot of bubble wrap still.
Yeah. Do you still have your storage unit, or were you
Yeah,
able to
no, I downsized back in January, right before the Cincinnati show. Maybe it was February, because I was paying $150 a month for a 10 by 10. And I just, I don't want to keep dumping out $150. So we downsized to a 4 by 5. And we found a promotional deal. I think we're paying like $40 a month on it, which is a lot cheaper. Plus, we had a few things from the house we could stick in there too. So I still have, I really got to go there and just make one last push to get rid of what I have. I'm just going to dump it, send it to Goodwill, see what last few things are worthwhile out of there. But I just got so many books still, and I don't have any desire to try and to sell a book on eBay and ship them. It's just so difficult. I gave you the McKeown's guides, Paul. You had the 2. And if you can get something for them, great. Just make them go to a good home. I got a couple other good books. I got the Princell Guide to Soviet Cameras. Found a copy of Larry Gubas's Zeiss and photography book. I got a spare Bob Rotoloni's book. One of these days I want to find someone to give it to, because I don't need 2 of the same book. But he had some great reference materials, but it's just, you have to draw the line somewhere. And for me to house a small library of books just isn't practical. I don't want to do it either. But
Yeah.
more to come there. But back to 2 things. Wanted to circle back at the beginning. We were talking about the L35. So yeah, there was the 400 and 100 or 1000 ASA version. Then they had the L35 AF2, which came out, and it lost the filter ring. It went down to a 4-element lens. It lost the backlight compensation switch too. And then in 87, they came up with it's called the One Touch AF3. That was 87. And I have a review of that one. That still has the 4-element lens, but they added the filter ring back. They also gave it a macro mode, so it can focus down to 1.5 feet as opposed to the original version. So I would say if you're in the market for the original Nikon point and shoot, the L35 AF, if the price is a little steep, look for the One Touch AF3. It flies under the radar because by then it kind of just looks like another one of Nikon's generic point and shoots from the same era, but it still kind of has that lineage. It's a very good camera, very excellent images. It has the filter ring. It can close focus. It has it in body flash. And it also uses a lithium battery, which I guess kind of sucks because you have to buy the more expensive batteries, but they last forever instead of the AAAs. And to my knowledge, at least I've never seen too many of the lithium battery pack cameras who've leaked and caused corrosion.
No,
Whereas the The double A's, you're real kind of 50-50. If you find batteries still in them, they're almost certainly going to have
Yeah.
some kind of corrosion or something.
Oh, the weakness of that, the original L35AF was always the battery door.
Yeah.
So it was a molded piece of plastic.
Yep.
It was hinged plastic,
Mhm.
and they broke off. I mean, they just broke. I mean,
Oh yeah.
usually you'll find they're taped up, and it tapes up's fine. I mean, it's not a big deal, but it's just annoying.
And then you guys are talking about what you've been shooting. I just finished a roll yesterday in a camera I'm actually super excited about. It's the Yashica Dental Eye, which is that Mac fixed lens macro camera that was for taking pictures of teeth. It's contacts or the original contact slash Kyocera Yashica. It would have originally had the CY mount, but on the Dental Eye, it's a fixed lens. You can't remove it. But the cool thing is it has a ring light built into the camera. So it's very well suited for taking pictures of teeth, but you can also take pictures of flowers and bugs. And I'm in where I'm at now, we're having the 17-year cicadas, the brood where they come out and they're just all over the place. And I've gotten a couple, or at least I hope, because I haven't developed the role yet, but I really hope I got some really cool close-ups of cicadas, which I think will be much more interesting to look at than teeth.
Mike, do you know what iridology is?
No.
Back in the late 60s, there was a guy that promoted something called iridology. And what it is photographing the iris of the eye. And he could make predictions of your health and general well-being by looking at the
Oh,
patterns
wow.
on your eye. That camera was what was sold for iridology, was the Yashica Dental Eye. You couldn't do it with a flash, of course, so you had
Yeah.
to figure out another way to light it. But I can't tell you how many of those cameras I sold to people that were into iridology. It was one of the great scams of all time. And I benefited greatly from it.
But what's if for anybody who's not familiar with this camera, it can't focus to infinity. I mean, it's truly a macro only, but at maximum distance, I mean, you can get about a foot and a half, maybe I'd say. So it's not like only extreme close-ups. It doesn't even give you the focus ring, doesn't even give you distance. It's measured in macro ratio. So you on this model, this is the first one. It goes down to 1:1, which is super close, and as far away as 1:10. And there were three dental eyes. I think it's the third one, or maybe it was the second one, switches to a slightly longer lens, which allows you to go even further away. So if you want to play with macro photography on film, but don't want to have to calculate like flash ratios, and in my opinion, I think figuring out flash on macro without blowing out the highlights is a bit of a challenge. But this camera is supposed to make it quite simple.
Well, it was designed for dental hygienists.
Right.
I mean, it was designed for a dental hygienist who was not a photographer to be able to pick it up. And they knew they
Yeah.
had to get a full face shot, a smile, a profile, and then a
Yeah.
bite wing. They call it a bite wing, which is a
Mm-hmm.
device they put in the mouth and spread it out and shoot the teeth. So, I mean, that'd be simple.
Yeah, it's real simple. There's even a lock. So if you get to that ideal distance you want, you can lock the focus ring so it won't move. And then you can fine tune just by moving the camera forward and back just by a slight amount. I'm excited for that one. And then the other one I told you guys about that I've been shooting is back in January, a reader of my site in the UK had contacted me. His father had passed away a couple years back, and he had an old camera that he wanted my advice on how to sell. And this is a story that anybody in a film photography has heard many, many times about, their dad or their grandpa's camera they found. But in this case, the camera was an Ilford Witness, which is a super rare British camera. It has a kind of a hybrid bayonet slash M39 screw mount. So the lens is made for it, did have a bayonet mount, but you can attach normal screw mount like a lenses, Nikkors, Jupiter 8s, whatever you want to it if you like. Rangefinder, it's a beautiful camera. I had written a short review of the Ilford Witness based off of one that I handled at Ira Cohen's house, but they only made, I want to say, like 350 of these things. So they're super rare, very expensive. It's definitely a bucket list camera that very few people get a chance to ever even see in person. And I never got to shoot Iris. I had maybe 3 minutes with it. I took a couple pictures, made a short review of the history of them and what I thought about them, but I never really thought I'd have a chance to really play with one. But this guy's like, I will send it to you, and we'll just figure out a way to sell it and get the guy back the money. So I'm taking no commission other than just the opportunity to shoot one, and it works. It's a little rough. It's by far, I wouldn't even say on the Japanese scale, it might be EXC with one plus, but it works. The lens is in good shape. The rangefinder's accurate. The shutter seems accurate at all speeds. And I have some Ilford film in it right now. And I'm really excited to finally get a chance to shoot that camera and kind of see what the results are. And when I'm done with it, I'll update my review with more information about it. Beyond that, though, and then the last thing that I have been spending some time with is the GOMZ Sport, which was an early SLR made in the Soviet Union. This thing is strange in that it has a metal vertically traveling focal plane shutter, but it's not really like the Contacts where there's like curtains with the metal slats and a silk ribbon. It's kind of, I'd say, closer to like what an EXA, the Ihegi EXA, where it's just like a plate that just kind of goes up and down, but it's still not even like the EXAs. It's truly a unique design, but it's so simple. I mean, there's almost nothing to go wrong with it. And it has no prism. It has an eye level top down viewfinder. So it's not a waist level. You can't, even at my chin, I can only see a circle. I mean, you have to hold your eye right up to it, just like as if it was a pentaprism, but you're looking at it from top down. And of course it's, flipped horizontally, but I got some images out of that one too. So I've been shooting some pretty cool cameras, trying to get through the backlog of some of the things I want to get reviewed. But I've missed doing these shows and talking to you guys. So I think that's what we were trying to do here. Just do a quick catch up to see what everybody's been doing.
All right. Well, you guys have a great evening. Hope say hi to Ira for me.
Yeah, we'll do.
Tonight. Because I had a message from him earlier, some cryptic message about my email. And I sent him back. He says, you won't get an email if I send it to that address. And I said, what are you talking about? You know my email address. And he says, oh, wait, that wasn't supposed to go to you. He sent it to the wrong guy. And then he said, well, I'll talk to you tonight. And I said, well, you won't, because it'll be 2 a.m. my time.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be asleep. So anyway. All right, you guys have a great afternoon.
Have fun. Enjoy your ice cream.
Okay, take care.
Are you heading out to see Ira?
No, before you joined, Paul had asked if we knew anybody who's going to jump on the show later on tonight. And I said, Ira. Ira is the only person who responded that he wanted to come. So it may just be me and him. I mean, you're welcome to join too if you want. But I'm just going to do a real quick edit some of what we talked about here and with whatever we could talk about there. And maybe somehow I can make a cohesive episode.
Yeah, I have to. We're doing walkthroughs of the cafe, trying to sell the build out the equipment.
Okay.
And so Jan and I have got a lot of work to do to get it ready for people to evaluate what it is they keep buying. So I'm going to be over there cleaning out the space. It's amazing what you can accumulate in 16 years.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I believe it. Now, I mean, obviously you have way bigger things to worry about, but what are you going to do about an address to ship things to you? I know you didn't like having things come to the house because it gets left in the driveway.
I know, and we've got our bakery, but we're just not there all the time.
Yeah.
We're probably gonna have to use the house.
The house, okay. I know a PO box wasn't an option a while back, so
they shut down the post office that was on our side of town.
Yeah.
So the post office that has post office boxes is like a 30-minute drive.
You don't have like a Kinko's or a UPS store? Because I know they have PO boxes too.
They're all on the other side of town.
Okay. All right.
I live out in the sticks.
Yeah. It's great for photography, not great for modern conveniences.
Yeah.
Well, it's good to see you. Or sorry, go ahead.
It's just one of the many things that I'm going to miss about the shop.
It sucks, man. I mean, I feel bad for you. I always assumed at some point I'd get down to Gainesville and visit you at the store, and I regret that I never had that opportunity.
Yeah, yesterday we peeled all of the signage off the front of it, scraped off the menu board, really cleaned it out, and now it's just another empty storefront downtown Gainesville.
Sucks.
Well, I will try to jump on tonight, but I can't guarantee I will.
That's fine. Whatever. Do what you got to do. I mean, I realize with your health, Theo's work has been slammed. Paul's been in Ireland. My work has been kind of busy up, although soccer is over. So I just felt like if we wait till all four of us are available again, we're never going to get a show. So by no means, I'm not excluding anybody, Theo, you, whatever. I just feel like let's just have shows. If we're not all there, we're not all there, you know?
Well, that was a good 45 minutes of content just right there.
Yeah, I think we did. We got some good stuff. So if anything, people tend to like what we talk about. So maybe they'll learn something about Nikon point and shoots or something.
All
right.
Yeah.
I'll talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Hey everyone. When we originally recorded this segment with Paul, Anthony, and myself, our intent was to record a separate segment with Theo and a live audience and edit the two segments together into one cohesive episode. That later proved to be difficult, so rather than try to mash two completely different discussions together, we decided to release both halves of episode 71 into two parts. Stay tuned for episode 71, part 2, in a couple of days.